Hey there everyone, it's Baka here and welcome to a very special two-part episode of Uncanny where we're going to look at a very important topic in comics, and that is the concept of death. Now in part one we're going to be looking at that old revolving door, the idea of death and rebirth in comics, how this happens very frequently, at the ramifications of this, and specifically we're going to look at those special cases where it just doesn't happen, where there's the death, but there's not the rebirth. Part 2, which will be next week's episode, we're going to be looking at some very special cases of death in comics and why they're so important in their own right and why they're so shocking and bring up such anger from certain fans. But for this week, we're going to look at the revolving door of death. Now, death in comics is not a new concept. It's not even a concept that really gets much credence anymore. There's an old saying that goes, "Only Bucky stays dead." Now, after doing a little research, I also noticed that they included Jason Todd and Uncle Ben in this, but the way I always heard it was, "Only Bucky stays dead." With the concept of "Only Bucky stays dead," what they're saying is that everyone in comics is perfectly legitimate for them to come back to life at some point, except for Bucky. Bucky being Captain America's sidekick, who was killed in World War II trying to help Captain America stop Baron Zemo from setting off a rocket that would destroy some part in the United States. And Bucky stayed dead for years. Now, what this really went on to mean was that throughout comics, characters would die, and then a storyteller would either find a reason to bring them back, maybe there would be a retcon in the continuity, maybe, they just wanted to bring some sort of shocker to that storyline. And so they would bring a character back. In some cases it was just sheer popularity of the character that brought them back. Now when it comes to rebirth, there is no team out there that does rebirth quite like the X-Men. I was racking my brain trying to figure out, is there an X-Man or X-Woman out there who has not died and been brought back to life? And the only ones I can really think of are Emma Frost, who, while she was in a coma for quite a long time and near death, she never actually died. And then, as I'm thinking about it now, I actually want to add Rogue into that as well. Rogue's had a lot of horrible things go on in her life, but I don't think she's died. But, counting them up, Wolverine dies like every 5 minutes. Cyclops has died at least once. Angel's died at least once. Iceman has died. Beast has died. Psylocke has kind of died while still being alive. Really confusing 90s story. And then the ultimate death and rebirth person in all of comics is Jean Grey. Jean Grey died, came back as the Phoenix, died as the Phoenix, came back, you find it, oh wait, that Phoenix wasn't actually Jean Grey, later on said no, yes it was. She died again, Magneto killed her. She came back, kind of, as a Dark Phoenix. Jokes have been made about her in the actual X-Men comics about, oh yeah, like her death's gonna last for very long. Jean Grey is the quintessential death and rebirth character. Granted, her call sign is Phoenix, rising from the ashes. You expect someone like that to resurrect. The fact that she has stayed dead as long as she has in her most recent case is shocking. People have thought that, with characters like Hope from X-Men Second Coming, that Jean Grey was being brought back. This is how they're going to do it. She's even being called Summers, like she was before she died the last time. But they've not done that. They've not had Hope have the same powers. Yes, she's a redhead. She was raised by Cable in the future. But she's not Jean Grey. So Jean Grey has firmly stayed dead for at least the better part of a decade. So, believe for that, she's coming back. Everyone knows it. It's just a matter of when. Now, looking at some significant comic book deaths and resurrections, probably the most significant one is Superman. Superman was killed by Doomsday in a knockdown, drag-out fight that saw them basically both kill each other by punching each other to death. But then this was immediately followed by the Reign of the Supermen story, where 4 pretenders to the throne came up, one being the Kryptonian AI Eradicator, one being a half-human, half-Kryptonian clone of Superman, who went on to be known as Connor Kent, Superboy. There was the Cyborg Superman, and then there was Steel. Now, all of this was in order to bring about the return of Superman. The end goal of the entire story was Superman's coming back. And they don't even tease it very well. I mean, it's fairly instantaneous. Oh, Superman's body is gone. Oh, there's something powering this regeneration matrix. And what you find out is, Superman died, his body was brought back, and they were able to supercharge it with solar power, and somehow he came back to life. They don't do a very good job of explaining it. What they do explain in there is Superman is like, oh, I was just really badly injured, and you guys were able to coax me back to a good semblance of life. And all of his little drones at the Fortress of Solitude were like, no, you were dead. We have no idea what happened. Now, what we find out years later is that Superman was in fact dead. He was in the afterlife. And he literally forced his way through a barely open door back from death to life. And in the DC Comics terms, this opened the door for all sorts of people to come back to life. Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, came back to life thanks to this open door. Hal Jordan was able to make it back. Barry Allen was able to make it back. Lots of minor characters, villains were able to come back. And Superman was basically blamed for the revolving door of death. And they basically coined this phrase because of Superman coming back to life. So the revolving door of death comes from DC Comics. Now in Marvel Comics, you have characters like Captain America, who famously was gunned down at the end of Civil War by his girlfriend, Sharon Carter, who, granted, was under mind control from Arnim Zola. But, and that's brought back, okay, we've got Bucky who's back to life. Well, he's going to be the new Captain America to honor Steve Rogers' memory. And that went great. He became one of the new Avengers. He was carrying on Steve's legacy. Then you find out, well, maybe Steve isn't really dead. Maybe his brain is traveling through time. And it got confusing. And then shortly after this, over in DC Comics, Batman was killed by an Omega Blast from Darkseid at the end of Final Crisis. And he's dead. He's like a skeleton in a batsuit in Superman's arms. But no, we find out his psyche is just traveling through time as well. So it's this concept of these superheroes that aren't really necessarily all that super, being able to come back to life, because they never sort of kind of really died. They died, they came back to life. It's comic books, get over it. Comic books are a revolving door. People die, people can come back to life. Whether it's a storyline, such as with Bucky, you find out decades later, well, Bucky never actually died. Bucky's body was found floating in the water by the Russians, and they resuscitated him, and they brainwashed him, and they cryogenically freeze him every now and again, so that when he's back in, the present day, he's still a pretty young guy. He's, about 30, 35 maybe. And he's able to do all this stuff now. So only Bucky stays dead if Bucky ever dies. Whatever. Truly, though, the only one we can really ever say is Uncle Ben stays dead. Uncle Ben was killed as a way to make Peter Parker truly into Spider-Man. You know, when your whole role in life is to die, chances are you coming back from the dead would not be a positive thing for the story or for the character. Now, they have brought Uncle Ben back in alternate forms in other universes, the Ultimate Universe, but in each case, Uncle Ben's job is to die. So there's that. Now, retconning. Retconning is the systematic erasing and reimagining of the entire comic book universe for that company. DC is regrettably really fond of retconning. They decided in 1985 to retcon with Crisis on Infinite Earths, and for the most part this was a very positive change. They were able to bring in all these disparate elements like Earth 2 and all these different multiverse characters, bring them into one universe, streamline things, keep around the favorite characters, and you're able to reintroduce slowly some of the lesser known characters. In doing so, they killed off Supergirl and they killed off Barry Allen the Flash. Now, Barry Allen stayed dead for over 20 years, and Wally West was able to take up the mantle. There was always a Flash. Flash is a flagship character. You got to keep that storyline going. So you have Wally West being the Flash. We're all still good. Supergirl, I'm still not clear on how she came back. Maybe it was just a retcon, but they all still remembered her dying. And Batman didn't trust her being back. It was confusing. It's still confusing. But most recently, with retconning, there's the New 52. And I've made my views fairly clear on the New 52 and how I am not a fan of it. Now, the New 52 is kind of weird because they say it's not a retcon. They say that, characters that are dead are dead. They're, we're not wanting to bring characters back to life, but that's exactly what they've done. They've de-aged everyone. They've made things really confusing. Superheroes only been around for 5 years. But you've got full-grown Nightwings and Jason Todds and Tim Drakes running around there having been Robin. They were all Robin in 5 years and grew up and are full-fledged superheroes in their own rights. That's another show. But they've done things like a lot of these characters that have died and were brought back in things like Brightest Day. They're able to say, oh, yeah, guess what? Here's a new character. The world's never seen this character. Let's reintroduce them. Let's change their origin story. Let's change their gender in cases like Metamorpho. But we can take these dead characters and we can make them alive again. Or we can kill off another character and we can bring them back. Wally West, character that never died, has not been brought back. Barry Allen, a character that did die, was brought back to life just in time for the world to be reckoned. In fact, just in time to cause this retcon. So retconning gives you carte blanche. You can do whatever you want with a retcon. You can bring back people who died. Maxwell Lord was brought back to life thanks to this. Booster Gold was kind of taken away because of it, even though he's become a really popular character. So, between trying to kill off a character and bring him back to life for story purposes, to be a shocker to the audience, or just because you can, death is meaningless in comics. Whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, you guys can decide. Give me your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this discussion, join in. Let me know your thoughts. But, that's all I have to say about death being a revolving door in comics, at least for now. If they kill off another one of my favorite characters and bring him back in a really bad way, trust me, you'll be the first to know. So until next week, until part 2 of this episode, this is Baka, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.